Support for this podcast comes from the Utah Office of Tourism, announcing the Four Corners School of Outdoor Education summer camps. Send your kids on a river or backpacking adventure this summer with educational summer camps in the Bears Ears Cedar Mesa area. Join in educational adventures that include night sky programs, art, geology, and service projects throughout this majestic region. Visit fourcornerschool.org/adventure for more information.
Now, the Three Martini Lunch with Greg Corombos and Jim Garrity.
And welcome, everyone, to the Monday edition of the Three Martini Lunch, along with Jim Garrity of National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. We have good, bad, and crazy martinis for conservatives today. I also want to let you know we're sponsored today by Dollar Shave Club. Stop spending a fortune on that gimmicky shave tech you just don't need. Make the smarter choice by joining Dollar Shave Club. Get your first month for only $5, just $5 with free shipping by going to dollarshaveclub.com/martini. More on them a little bit later in this edition. Jim, we're happy to report we have good, bad, and crazy, usual format today, which has been tough to achieve over the last couple of weeks. By the time we're done with this podcast, some folks might wonder why we haven't talked about the Notre Dame walkout by some of the students there at commencement when Vice President Mike Pence was brought up to the podium to give the commencement address. It was disrespectful and all that. I think it's mostly true, but as a Michigan fan, I'd like to point something out. The commencement ceremony was held in the football stadium, and for any Notre Dame fan last year, leaving early is nothing new. They lost 5 home games last year. They lost to Navy. They lost to Duke. So hitting the exits before it's time, nothing new at South Bend in the last
just
year.
Just a habit, yeah. They just figured, we might as well, before getting out of the parking lot is bad. So.
All right, well, let's get to the good martini now, and let's go to yesterday in Saudi Arabia. President Trump addressing not only officials in Saudi Arabia, but officials from a lot of other countries in the region, talking about the need to confront radical Islam, extremists, terrorists, a lot of different ways that he phrased it in the speech. And, Jim, a couple of different things stood out to a lot of people. A lot of people like that he called out Iran and called for a lot of the countries in that region to stand up to Iran. 2 other clips we're going to point out here. This one that I thought talked about the need to give no safe haven to extremist ideology while reminding the nations in that region it's their job to take the fight to these extremists as well.
It's a choice between 2 futures, and it is a choice America cannot make for you. A better future is only possible if your nations drive out the terrorists and drive out the extremists. Drive them out. Drive them out of your places of worship. Drive them out of your communities. Drive them out of your holy land. And drive them out of this earth.
And, Jim, you thought the passage that stood out the most was where Trump addressed what is often the ultimate motivation for those looking to kill a lot of people.
And it means standing together against the murder of innocent Muslims, the oppression of women, the persecution of Jews, and the slaughter of Christians. Religious leaders must make this absolutely clear. Barbarism will deliver you no glory. Piety to evil will bring you no dignity. If you choose the path of terror, your life will be empty, your life will be brief, and your soul will be fully condemned.
Jim, this speech getting a lot better reviews than most people thought going into it. Kind of reminds me of his not formal State of the Union address, but the address to Congress earlier in the year. What did you make of it?
I think it was very well written, and I think it was well delivered. And in fact, I think I agree with just about every word in the speech. I'm hearing some people say, there wasn't nearly enough talk about human rights. Usually this are people who defended the Iran deal that the Obama administration put together. So I don't really understand. You can say, well, look, we're going to put together a deal and do everything we can to help out Iran. But then we're very, very upset that the president did not go to Saudi Arabia and yell 15 out of 19 to the king to his face or something like that. Look, this was diplomatic Trump. And I think both messages were really important and necessary to get through here. The first part being, look, despite what Trump said on the campaign trail, despite his comments before, like, I think Islam hates us. He was there to say, look, we are not your enemy. We don't want to be your enemy. We want to work together. But the second half of the speech was also, look, guys, you guys can fight this on a theological terms much better than we can. It's entirely possible that this speech is well regarded and gets good headlines and gets a round of applause and then doesn't amount to anything. There's no guarantee that this is going to work, but it is reassuring to see an American president, and ironically one who is not traditionally associated with having a strong and overt religious faith, making the argument to the Muslim world to say, look, Al-Qaeda, ISIS, all of these extremist groups are driven by a theological component. That is, if you do what their vision of God wants, if you go out and kill infidels, you will be rewarded in the afterlife. You'll get your 40 virgins and all that kind of stuff. And as alien as this is to us, anyone who's studied the history of Christian martyrs understands that as well. That if you have a deep and abiding faith and you believe that part of your mission on earth, part of your purpose is to do God's will, then you basically don't really worry that much about the here and now. Yeah, you're going to suffer. In fact, this is very explicit in Christianity, but your reward is in the afterlife. That's when you get taken care of. And so you shouldn't worry that much about the here and now. Yes, you're going to suffer. Yes, you're going to go through hard times. Yes, you're going to have defeats and setbacks, but your good stuff comes to you after you die. This is a mentality that operates all throughout all these extremist groups. And it's the problem is that their attitude is not just, be a good person and you'll be rewarded in the afterlife. It's very much kill the infidel and you'll be rewarded in the afterlife. Look, Muslim theologians and imams and religious leaders, you have to address this. You have to dispel this idea. You have to tell these people, no, you're not going to get this reward in the afterlife. And, even if you want to say this kind of hard to empirically prove, we can say your soul will be condemned here, right? You will not be remembered as a hero. You will not be remembered as a glorious martyr. You will be remembered as somebody who took the faith and twisted it and perverted it and made life harder for Muslims instead of better for Muslims. You will not be seen as a hero of your people. And if that happened, I think that would actually do a really great counterbalance to the recruiting efforts of ISIS and Al-Qaeda and all these other Islamist extremist groups. So I think it was a great message. I don't know, time will tell how much this actually changes things, but it was really, I think, kind of groundbreaking to hear an American president saying, look, this is the message we need to dispel the theological component of the message that Islamist terror groups have been spreading.
All right, let's move on to the bad martini now, Jim. And it is an election year, not in a lot of places in 2017, but it is in a couple of places. We'll have governor's races this year in Virginia and New Jersey. And our focal point here in the bad martini is the situation currently in Virginia. This was, at least in presidential politics, a reliably Republican state until 2008. As far as governorships go, obviously the Southern tradition is that there were a lot of Democrat governors, and then in more recent years, at ping-ponged, you got folks like George Allen and Jim Gilmore and then Bob McDonnell. In between, you had Mark Warner and Tim Kaine, and now you got Terry McAuliffe, who blissfully can't run for a second term. Right now, we've got a primary coming up, June 13th. Pretty tight race on the Democratic side. Former Congressman Tom Perriello in the New Washington Post poll is up on Ralph Northam, the lieutenant governor, 40-38. Both of them diehard lefties. In the Republican side, Ed Gillespie looks to be a runaway winner in the primary, 38% to 18% for Corey Stewart and 15% for Frank Wagner. But the problem is with the head-to-head, because Ed Gillespie gets 38% in the primary, and he's pretty much stuck there for the general election as well. Northam leads him 49-38 in a hypothetical matchup. Perriello leads him 50-37 in a hypothetical matchup. And, oh, by the way, in Virginia, the disapprove over approve for President Trump is 59-36. So, Jim, it's pretty typical that whatever party wins the White House doesn't win the governor's mansion in Virginia. McAuliffe was kind of an exception to that rule in the past 40 years. But right now, it looks like the GOP's got their base and not a lot else right now.
This is not exactly stunning. It is a little bit troubling. I think I'd want to see more than one poll pointing to this result, but it doesn't seem crazy or outlandish. As you said, usually when there's a backlash to a new election of a president, Virginia is where it happens. And sometimes you see it in the gubernatorial election of New Jersey and sometimes the New York City mayor's race as well. That, if somebody gets elected, there's a decent amount of excitement and enthusiasm, and then all of a sudden, this isn't turning out the way we want. We're angry at the party in charge. Trump, having won a lot of purple states and a lot of states that had been blue for a long time, did not win Virginia. And I think it's safe to say that, Virginia is one of those states that is purple, perhaps trending blue, as more and more of the balance of population is spread out to those northern suburbs outside D.C., where you and I are taping our podcast right now. Yes, there's plenty of red voters down, in the south and west part of the state, but you basically have to run a Bob McDonnell campaign. You have to run a if not perfect campaign, a very strong campaign, and it helps if the Democrats make a mistake. It's worth noting that Ken Cuccinelli 4 years ago ended up performing much better than any of the polling indicated. I believe he was within 3% after trailing by the neighborhood of double digits for a long time. And it's also worth noting that the likely nominee or the front runner, Ed Gillespie, came very close to beating Mark Warner a few years ago. Still, the margin for error for Republicans is not very big in this state. And it's just a fact of life. Donald Trump is not very popular in Virginia right now. If there's a particular kind of Republican that can, win a place like Virginia, it might be one who doesn't have a lot of hard edges, shall we say. Someone who's not going to make a great deal of controversy. The only time I felt like I ever heard from Bob McDonnell for the first couple of years of his governorship was when he announcing some company was moving here. This was, somebody who's kind of cheery and optimistic and not, constantly full of controversy, and Donald Trump is not that. So the question for Ed Gillespie is going to be, how effectively can he offer a message that is distinct from the Trump administration and say, look, this is not a referendum on President Trump. This is about how we run our state. And I think it's, it may be turning out to be a much bigger problem for the Gillespie campaign than they expected. Now, it's mid-May. The primary is about a month away. Virginians are not that tuned into the gubernatorial election right now. Maybe on the Democratic side, they're fighting about who their nominee is going to be. But by and large, I don't see a lot of yard signs around. People are just not fired up about it. We did just have an election 6 months ago that was utterly exhausting and draining and all that stuff. I fully expect this is probably going to be a competitive race, but I think there's now some reason for Republicans to sweat that this is probably not going to be a battle contested entirely on state level issues, which probably would work better for Republicans. And there's a possibility that Trump is going to be dead weight, even though Ed Gillespie and Donald Trump are very different men and probably have very different agendas.
Yeah, that's pretty safe to say. Trump did very poorly in the Northern Virginia suburbs, and that most likely cost him Virginia in the presidential race. Obviously, it didn't matter. He got to the majority in the Electoral College. Jim, you mentioned people not tuned in. Here's one indication of that. Approval, disapproval for Terry McAuliffe, 4 years on the job, basically, and about to head off into whatever comes next, probably a 2020 presidential bid. 49% approve, 25% disapprove, and after almost a full term, 26% have no opinion.
Wow. Well, look, he hasn't gotten arrested yet. That's something to approve. Yet.
Yeah, so far our prediction's not coming true. We thought he would either quit to join the Hillary campaign. If she were to win, he would join the administration, or he would be indicted. So far, we're 0 for 3 on those. But we still got a few months left, and he was under some sort of investigation there at one point. So
there you go. Yep.
We'll see. Time will tell. All right, let's talk about Dollar Shave Club, because if you remember Ed Gillespie's Senate race in 2014, that was a pretty close shave, too. Dollar Shave Club, the smarter choice. You will get a great shave at a great price, conveniently delivered right to your door. You don't have to worry about it. It's a no-brainer choice. You no longer have to schlep to the store to buy a cheap disposable razor that gives you a terrible cheap shave, or spend a fortune on razors with gimmicky shaving tech that you don't need. Look, you got enough issues with your budget right now. You don't need to be thinking about $20 a month at least for replacement cartridges from the national brand names. $1 a blade a week from Dollar Shave Club. You really can't beat that. And you don't have to go get it. It just comes to you. It couldn't be more convenient. As I've mentioned, I'm a Dollar Shave Club customer. I was really impressed when the first box came. That's when you get your handle in addition to your first month's supply of blades. It's not one of those cheap handles. It's a good, solid Dollar Shave Club executive razor. And it comes, of course, with the 4 different cartridges that you can span out over a month. It also comes with the Dr. Carver shave butter. And the blade, man, they're good. They're not the cheap blades either. They glide so gently, and they give such a great, smooth shave. Plus, the Dr. Carver shave butter is transparent, something we don't get a lot from Terry McAuliffe. And so that, for a more precise shave, use the Dr. Carver shave butter because it helps prevent ingrown hairs and fights those razor bumps.
Now, listeners to 3 Martini Lunch can make the smarter choice by joining Dollar Shave Club. For a limited time, new members get their first month of the Executive Razor with a tube of their own Dr. Carver's shave butter for only $5 with free shipping. After that, razors are just a few bucks a month. That is a $15 value for just $5. Now, in your first month box, you'll get the awesome weighty handle, a full cassette of 4 cartridges, and a tube of their shave butter. After your first month, replacement cartridges ship automatically at their regular price, and there are no hidden fees and no commitments. You can cancel anytime you like.
And you can only get this offer exclusively at this address, dollarshaveclub.com/martini. dollarshaveclub.com/martini. Again, dollarshaveclub.com/martini. All right, Jim, on to our crazy martini now. And for those who pay attention to presidential trips overseas, every once in a while you kind of see the president engaging in some certainly unusual customs from an American perspective, but you get a glimpse of what tradition and different ceremonies are like in other places. I know whenever the president goes to the Asia-Pacific Economic Summit, they're always dressed in some bizarre outfit with that almost look like, in some ways, like kimonos or Hawaiian shirts or whatever the host country is doing. And so that kind of raises your eyebrows. I remember George W. Bush going to Africa, and there was some sort of tribal dance going on as part of the welcoming ceremony, and he tried to get involved with the dance himself. It was slightly awkward. Saudi Arabia really rolled out the red carpet for President Trump in just about every way imaginable. But one of the things we saw on I believe it was Saturday morning, our time, was this elaborate sword dance where the president and members of his cabinet, I believe, were holding swords, as were all these different folks dressed in the normal Arab garb there, dancing around, waving swords around. So, Jim, I don't remember the exact words of your tweet, but it involved a junior Secret Service agent asking whether this was a good idea, and the senior Secret Service agent just rubbing his eyes and saying, sure, whatever.
I mean, that meeting had to happen, Greg. At some point, somebody had to say, yeah, so the Saudis really want to roll out the red carpet. They've got this enormous, elaborate ceremony to welcome the president. He's going to love it. They want to all dance around with swords. And I'm sure this. Wait. No, pointy swords. Yes, they're going to be very sharp, very pointy. And the president will be surrounded by Arab men. The guy who said Islam hates us, and who said all that controversial stuff during the campaign. He'll be surrounded by that. I'm sure we can trust the Saudis to vet their guys. No, by the way, they want to give the entire cabinet swords. Oh, Trump might get a sword too. You can only imagine the Secret Service. Wait, so we're going to give this guy, the president of the United States will have a sword, and he'll be dancing around while lots of other people dance around in circles like whirling dervishes, and hopefully no one ends up, short a limb when all is said and done. Amazingly enough, it went off without a hitch. No, as far as I know, no one got a paper cut from it. So, well done, Saudis. Well done, Secret Service. Well done, everybody involved. It was just a really bizarre set of images. I think it is I think it was very good for everybody in the president's traveling company to be game and to go with it and to play with it, go along and enjoy themselves. It certainly was not an image of the American president you're used to seeing. I think it was Ann Applebaum off in the Washington Post who was extremely upset, but they call this a sinister male-only dance. Now here's the thing. Could you imagine, Greg, if Trump had said, no, I'm not doing that? Right? He'd be accused of being a bad guest and rude to his hosts and, undiplomatic and all that kind of stuff. So clearly it's darned if you do, darned if you don't. Look, I think it was bizarre and funny and almost kind of strangely delightful. Almost as much as the fact that when they went to tour the counter terrorism and counter extremism center that the Saudis had set up to battle it online, apparently the on switch, Greg, is plugged to one of the Infinity Stones from Marvel Comics movies, because that's the easiest explanation for the giant glowing orb they had. Another bizarre but strangely delightful photo op that the Saudis helped organize. Nice. I didn't actually see that one. Does it look like the Eye of Sauron? Is it kind of like that? So you know how during the campaign Trump denounced the globalists? Yeah. Well, just picture how his online brigades felt when they saw him and the Saudi king, and I believe the Saudi head of counterintelligence or counterterrorism, all putting their hands on a giant glowing globe of the earth. All their eyes all lit by it. It really, somebody pointed out, it was really the best opening to a Bond movie they've ever seen. The lighting is very weird and dramatic. And lots of people were tweeting it around and saying, "Hail Hydra." All kinds, a bazillion and one conspiracy theories have probably been launched by that photo, and it just looks utterly bizarre. They just I guess this is their reset button, right? They wanted to have a big dramatic ceremony, so they all put their hands on the orb, and that powered up all the computers, and the Counter-Extremism Center began its work for the first day. So on the one hand, you kind of have to admire the theatricality of the Saudis. On the other hand, I'm sure Alex Jones's head exploded.
One quick follow-up question on the sword dance, Jim. Given the fact that you mentioned whirling dervishes, is there any truth to the rumor that a certain archaeologist, Dr. Henry Jones, was added to the security detail just in case?
Well, you know how he demonstrated in the streets of Cairo how he deals with swordsmen.
That's why I thought he might be there, just in case.
There you go. One bang, taken care of, piece of cake. Yeah. By the way, also, this is not really one of our formal martinis, kind of a bonus martini for folks, Greg. We should let our listeners know that the Turkish government has summoned the U.S. ambassador to call him onto the carpet because of the rude difficulties that Turkish security had when the Turkish president visited, and people may have seen the video of them kicking the bejesus out of all those protesters outside of the embassy. Apparently, the Turks are very upset, Greg, that one of their security guards had one of the protesters in a headlock, and they may have sprained a muscle in the process of doing that. So, there you go.
So sympathetic. Wow.
It's really tough. Some of their shoes got scuffed as they were kicking the protesters in the shins and in the ribs and head and stuff. So, and let me tell you, the blood stains of the protesters, the dry cleaning bills are going to be enormous for those Turkish security guys. So, they've got a lot to complain about.
Wow. The gumption of that guy is just incredible. He just sat there watching it like a mafia boss. Off to a good start here on Monday, though, huh, Jim?
Wait, isn't it Friday?
Oh, no. It's going to be one of those weeks. And Comey's testifying tomorrow. Buckle down, everybody. Jim Garrity of National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks for being with us today. And don't forget our friends at Dollar Shave Club. Get their great deal, $15 value for only $5. DollarShaveClub.com/martini. DollarShaveClub.com/martini. And join us Tuesday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.
Okay, Kevin, for the grand prize of $1 million. What color is the White House?
I know this.
5 seconds.
Oh, switching to Geico could save you a bunch of money on car insurance?
Okay. Judges? That's true, Kevin. They'll allow it. Congratulations. You're a winner.
Woo!
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.